Torashi. So, anyhow, it's Saturday night. I got my butterbeer, and to quote one of my favorite Amerikanski film, I'm gonna have me some fun. So, what we're gonna be doing is, and by we, of course, I mean myself, you know, the royal we and all that. What we're gonna be doing is we're gonna be reacting / analyzing a very popular song from actually years ago, which is Mama Россия. So to start out with, I'm thinking I'll talk about which version to watch. So this is, as far as I can tell, like the closest to like an official version there is. It's the Vision Media version. It does have like subtitles on it, like in closed captions, but there's something in it I don't quite like, which is that when you get over here, they block one of the people with an ad, which is like, it's a very minor thing, but it's just like, I feel sorry for the kid here. Like, I don't know if you've ever been in like a children's choir or whatever, but like, if you're told you're gonna be like, you know, in a video, and then they just like, they put an ad completely in front of your face. like I mean, like, I'm getting like Chinese at the Olympics vibes here, I mean, you know. So, I mean, it's like, I mean, that's right up there with stand in the back and move your lips, you know, it's gonna be really disappointing to the kids. So, instead of watching this version, which, you know, has this obnoxious ad right in front of it for, you know, this song isn't as good, we're gonna be watching this version, which is a more recent upload. Video quality is actually lower, but they subtitled the whole thing, which will be great for, you know, my Amerikanski tovarishī. And also it doesn't block the little girl's face, so, you know, everyone's treated equally, which is a good thing. So let's do this. And if we stop the video there, we probably won't trigger too many people. I mean, they already showed President Vladimir Putin on the screen, and I know there's like a lot of, like, you know, people who are loyal to Joseph Biden, you know, have convinced themselves that he's responsible for all of America's problems. You know, definitely not Americans who are to blame for America's problems. No, it's all Russia. Russia did it. Russia elected Trump. Russia made people not like Hillary. I mean, there's no way Hillary could do that herself. I mean, she had to rig her own primary, for crying out loud. There's no way she could have... there's no way a woman who literally couldn't win her own primary could fail to take the presidency if it wasn't for, you know, evil Russian interference. I'm being sarcastic, obviously. Hillary couldn't win an election against a wet paper bag. But, it's gonna get more political after this, and I'm gonna talk about that. But just, this is your warning, like, if you're like, you need a trigger warning here, it's gonna get more political now. Okay, so A lot of the things they said there might be very triggering to Americans, but you just Google regime change and look at the successes stories that have resulted from that. You know, like Libya, failed state where they brought back the slave trade. I mean, this is what America regime change does. You get literal slavery brought back. You get failed states. You get Christian churches, as Tucker Carlson recently pointed out in his video on the subject. Christians have suffered disproportionately from American regime change in Iraq, in Libya, in Syria. Everywhere that there's American regime change, Christian churches come under attack.
A consistent but almost never noted theme of American foreign policy is that it is always the Christians who suffer.
Including Ukraine, by the way, because in Sweet Home Ukraine, the main church was the Orthodox Church, and that's been, as Tucker Carlson noted, placed under some level of persecution by the government, which is literally trying to use like church, which is subservient to Turkey, to Turkey as a replacement for the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, which was traditionally linked to Russia. Now, I'm Catholic, by the way, which puts me in the same category as a lot of very patriotic West Ukrainians, but I am absolutely disgusted and appalled by American regime change and also by the persecution of the Orthodox Church in the Ukraine by the current government there. So, yeah, let's continue.
Mama, Россия, mama, все любви и без обмана. Мама, Россия, mama, на молитву встанем рано. Мама, Россия, mama, от Москвы до океана. Мама, Россия, mama, все любви и без обмана. Мама, Россия, mama, Россия, mama, Мама, Россия, mama. Мама, Россия, mama. Мама, Россия, mama.
Что за политика, что за приколы? Турки, как раньше, в спину уколы. НАТО залезло в славянский
Something you should know about Turkey, by the way. Turkey, if you looked it up, Turkey like illegally shot down a Russian plane over Syria because it was interfering with their attempt to support the jihadists who carried out ethnic cleansing against Christians as well as Kurds and, you know, other people. And Shia Muslims and, you know, whatever. Whoever isn't a Turkish-backed Sunni Muslim ended up on the receiving end of that Turkish-backed ethnic cleansing. But there's actually a very long history of Turkey doing really awful stuff to Slavic people. As you probably have heard of it, like, you know, like kidnapping Slavic children and turning them into janissaries and things like that nature, which they did in the Balkans. But the Crimea, before the Russians took it, it was a Khanate. And you see, as soon as I start typing that in, you know, it starts bringing up Khanate slavery. And there's a reason for that. Because the Khanate of the Crimea was a semi-independent region of the Ottoman Empire. And they were very notorious for having one of the most brutal slave trades in the whole history of the world. Now, the American, like the Atlantic slave trade, is actually one of the worst examples of slavery. If there's anything that comes close to it, or maybe is even worse, it would be the slave trade that was carried out by the Khanate of the Crimea, which was a part of the Ottoman Empire. They raided as far north as Finland. Like, I'm not kidding. They literally went through all of, like, Ukraine and Russia, went as far north as Finland. And they had these charming little habits. Like, for example, now the main reason they were raiding is they wanted people to use as slaves, especially women. If they were, like, pretty, they could get a high price for them. But, they captured other people too, and the ones they could not get a good price for, they would, they had this thing where, like if they had like old or infirm slaves that they couldn't sell for a high price at market, they would just give them to their children so that they could practice killing, which gives you an idea of how morally bankrupt the Khanate of the Crimea was. Like, you know, not only are they just, the whole society was built on the slave trade, but like, letting children kill slaves that they can practice killing was like a normal thing to them. Like, These people make the Spartans look like gentle humanitarians by comparison. And they continued this. Now the Cossacks are like heroes in Russia and Ukraine because they defended the people against these degenerates. But it didn't really end until the Russians under Catherine the Great defeated the Crimean Khanates and, defeated the Ottomans and made Crimea part of Russia, which is why the vast majority of people in Crimea today are Russians. It's because Catherine the Great defeated the Khanate of the Crimea and made it part of Russia. But yeah, Turkey has a long history of dealing extremely badly with Slavic people, including Russia. So let's just continue this now.
Может, распишем опять вам рецепт?
Вам же вон рассказал президент, что в этих войнах один лишь ответ. Русских нельзя никогда победить.
Можете только себе навредить.
I realize some people who don't like political stuff might have got triggered by the mention of like the president in there and stuff. A couple things to bear in mind. Excuse me, I'm sorry. I'm swallowing a frog right now. A couple things to bear in mind. One of them is that Vladimir Putin is far more popular than any American politician ever could be. Because he's now seen as the person who's like defending Russia against foreign invaders. People in Russia today feel about the same way about Vladimir Putin that like people in England felt about Churchill during the Blitz. Churchill was not the most popular person in England prior to World War II, but when he became a symbol of Russian resistance to the Nazis, then he became like someone you could not. As long as that continued, he was set. And speaking of Nazis, this is the symbol of the Azov battalion in the Ukraine. This is the Wolfsangel. This is the same symbol used by a lot of special organizations, by which I mean Nazis. It was used by the SS, including the SS Das Reich division. It's also the symbol of choice for skinheads and neo-Nazis across Europe. It's found in the emblem of the Aryan nations, which is, obviously a group of not very nice people in the United States, which is currently led by a group called Sadistic Souls. Yeah, well, those sound like nice people, don't they? Sadistic Souls. I wonder what they're. Yeah, and there's a Nazi Totenkopf there, along with the same, wonderful Wolfsangel used by the Azov. There's also this thing here. This is the Black Sun. Now, when I think of the Black Sun, I think of a location in one of my favorite games, which is Remnant from the Ashes, but unfortunately it's more sinister than that, because Black Sun is actually a Nazi symbol because it was a favorite symbol of Heinrich Himmler, because it was on the floor in the castle he used. So, yeah. Oh, and if you're not completely convinced that the Azov are Nazis, I'm not reading this, but this is what the founder of the Azov battalion said about people of Semitic origin. You notice he's even using German in this here. This is not Ukrainian. This is not a Slavic word here. He's so much of a Nazi that he literally has to borrow words because he can't express his Nazi ideology properly in a Slavic language. Oh, and here he is with Zelensky, because they're both actually backed by Igor Kolomoisky, the oligarch who is behind Zelensky, and the Azov battalion, as well as the Dnipro battalion and other far-right organizations that have turned Ukraine into a failed state. This guy right here, Igor Kolomoisky, funds the Azov movement, also personally responsible for the rise of Zelensky, who became famous because Igor Kolomoisky made him the star of a television show in which Zelensky literally played the honest, straight-shooting president of the Ukraine. I'm not even kidding. The television show was literally just like on audition to be Igor Kolomoisky's pet pet president. And this is, he's actually banned from entering the United States because he's so corrupt even the Americans don't like him, but he's also the main financial backer for This for the Azov Battalion. Oh, and the Azov Battalion also carries out pogroms against gypsies, Roma people. So yeah, that's just like every other failed state. The failed state that was created by NATO-aligned countries in the Ukraine is very bad and is especially harmful for Christians. So let's continue.
Мама, Россия, мама, все в любви и без обмана. Мама, Россия, мама, на молитву встанем рано. Мама, Россия, мама, от Москвы до океана. Мама, Россия, мама, все в любви и без обмана. Мама, Россия, мама, Россия, мама. Мама, Россия, мама.
Агрессивное внешнее вмешательство привело к тому, что вместо реформ государственные институты были просто бесцеремонно разрушены, а права человека, включая и право на жизнь, ни во что не ставятся. Так и хочется спросить тех, кто создал такую ситуацию. Вы хоть понимаете теперь, чего вы натворили?
No, honestly, like the part where where Vladimir Putin explains that that Western countries create failed states and this is a bad thing to do and they're doing it on purpose and they clearly want to destroy Russia or basically the whole civilized world. I think he's kind of right, but I would have cut this out of the song because I just don't approve of like bringing the song to a screeching halt so that the president can say his piece. And I feel the same way about like Churchill and Roosevelt and any other wartime embattled president who has to defend his country from Nazis. I mean, whatever. Please don't ruin the song. Speaking of which, the song was actually made in like 2016, which is before the so-called special military operation, which is what the Russians prefer to call the war in Ukraine, because just like Americans, Russians have this thing where they like to pretend the war is not a war. It's like a kinetic military action. That's what Obama called his war to destroy Libya. It's a special military operation. It's a war. Everyone knows it's a war, but it's like for legal reasons. It's legally distinct from a war, because there are rules about what happens in a war, and they don't want to do that. So it's legally distinct from a war, but it is a war. It's something I really hate, no matter what country does it. The kind of double speak. But anyhow, this was actually made, like, not this video here, but the original was made before the beginning of the special military operation. So it's like, before that happened, people understood that this was going on. This was, the Western regime change operations were building failed state. It was encroaching on Russia. It was making life very difficult for ethnic Russian people. In fact, more than 1 million ethnic Russians actually fled the Ukraine, mainly to Belarusia and Russia itself, prior to the beginning of the so-called special military operation. There were thousands of people who died in the Donbass before that. And at the very beginning of the regime change operation, people who were demonstrating against the government, which was installed not by an election, but by a pro-Western source would say revolution. Someone who's not that way would say coup, were actually massacred at the Union Building in Odessa. Officially, it was like 48 people killed or something. That number may have changed. It was pretty awful, and yeah, that was like way back in 2014, like back when this first kicked off. If anyone tells you that the war began in 2022, that's a point of view. That was certainly the beginning of the full-scale Russian intervention in the war, but thousands and thousands and thousands of people were killed before that, and it didn't have to happen because the Minsk Accords were supposed to end the war, And the Ukrainian government just refused to implement them, partially because they were afraid of the far right, which is, don't take my word for it, look that up yourself. But it's true. By the way, if you're interested in learning more about, like what happened with Ukraine and all of that, and all of these, completely unnecessary, about the destruction of Sweet Home Ukraine, which really did not have to happen, look up this guy, John Mearsheimer. Pretty much everything he says is, worth hearing. He's a really good analyst, not because he's like a genius or anything, but because he's actually an analyst as opposed to a lobbyist. Because if you go to the mainstream media, most of the people you hear on the mainstream media aren't really analysts. They're bought and paid for lobbyists who work for either for the war industry or for some other sinister organization. They're basically defense industry lobbyists who it's their job to sell war, and so they're not going to tell you the truth even if they knew it, which, because they're scumbags. Most of them don't even have the level of curiosity to actually find the truth. They wouldn't know the truth if it bit them in the Netherlands by and large. So, but yeah, John Mearsheimer is really good. The Duran is also a good channel. They have lots of good analysts on there, but I'd recommend that if you want to hear from someone who doesn't have a voice as annoying as mine, and is more of an expert than I am. I'm not an expert. I'm just trying to add context here.
Мама, Россия, мама, все в любви и без обмана. Мама, Россия, мама, на молитву встанем рано. Мама, Россия, мама, от Москвы до океана. Мама, Россия, мама, все в любви и без обмана. Мама, Россия, мама, все в любви и без обмана. Мама, Россия, мама, на молитву встанем рано. Мама, Россия, мама, от Москвы до океана. Мама, Россия, мама, все в любви и без обмана. Мама, Россия, мама.
Well, that's based. Okay, so there's a non-zero correlation between people who watch this and Richmond, north of Richmond. I was not actually expecting that one. This is a really cool song too. I recommend it sometime. But alright, anyhow, so I think probably a lot of like wokist type people probably would really hate that song because the footage of
ситуацию. Вы хоть понимаете теперь,
the devil
ни во
is
что
in it.
не ставится.
Vladimir Putin, who says words representing a point of view that is different from that of our glorious leader Joe Biden. But, who's not triggered by this stuff? Africans. Africans get it. If you type in, you see a pregame this, if you type in, Mama Russia reaction, you'll see a lot of black people. And, if you watch the videos, you'll find out that these are not black Americans or whatever for the most part. These are actual black African people with who speak English in the African way and all that. And they really get it. They really get it. African people who are in love with this song on YouTube, it's this is not a video, this is a category of videos. Okay. African people really get it. And I was wondering why that is. And I think I understand it in a sort of way. There's just something that resonates with the souls of black folk for this song for a lot of them. I think what it is that, the way to put it is that Russians are Slavs are the blacks of Europe, fundamentally. That could explain why they feel the need to put rap into their songs. Seriously. If you hang out with, if you hang out with Eastern Slavic people, you notice that rap music really resonates with them. But it's Slavs are they're the blacks of Europe, they have the common ancestry and slavery. They have this common heritage of being horribly oppressed, specifically by by Europeans, and of course also by Muslim invaders and Mongols and lots of people. this does not, by the way, when I say Muslim invaders, let me be 100% clear. I'm not talking about like Chechens and Dagestanis and like indigenous Muslim people of Russia. Those are very great people. In fact, they saved Russia from Wagner. I'm talking about like the Khanate of the Crimea, you know, the slave traders who were based in there and just like attacked and, you know, enslaved other people. And like the Ottomans who, like, you know, committed the Armenian genocide and did other, you know, questionable things, let's just say. But, you know, the word slave, actually, you probably know this if you're smart, but the word slave literally comes from the word Slav, because Slavic people were targeted by, like, Europeans and Ottomans and other people so much that the word slave in the English language, and, you know, I assume other languages as well, literally comes from the word Slav. So, you know, just think about that the next time you hear these Russia-phobic statements, next time you hear these people, you know, with all their hatred for Russia and, you know, all these various other Slavic countries, it's like they're literally hating the slaves. And I think that's something that, you know, like African people, you know, even if they, maybe if they don't even consciously recognize it, it's like there's this common heritage, just like the targets of slavery, targets of slave traders. Africans, like Slavs, were targeted by European slave traders and also by Muslim slave traders in a very similar way. Like black people in East Africa were frequently taken in slave raids by, you know, sometimes went really deep into Africa, oftentimes for the same reason that they wanted to capture people to bring back and sell as wives in like Arabia. Black people and Slavs have a lot in common, is what I'm saying, and I think that could be why this song resonates with so many African people. But yeah, anyhow, just something I noticed, something that made me happy. I like to see, you know, people from, you know, different races and cultures, you know, like having something in common, and that's actually why I made the video, because I'm hoping maybe my non-zero number of subscribers can, you know, enjoy this song too, maybe feel something like I did. So anyhow, that's all. God bless. I'll put the links to both of these versions in the video and in the description. Zdravania.